Mike Tannenbaum was back in the chair as a virtual NFL general manager for an ESPN mock draft simulation, and he had a very interesting pick for the New York Jets, which sparked quite the debate on Jets Twitter. Let's get into it.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Good morning, what's poppin', everybody? Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Well, Boy Green. And there's a full article in the YouTube description down below because Mike Tannenbaum did a mock draft for ESPN, but it's an important caveat to make because a lot of people were going crazy. Mike Tannenbaum was upfront in the introduction of this mock draft that this is not some sort of guessing game on what he believes these NFL teams will do, but rather what he would do if he was the NFL general manager for each of these teams, which I thought was a very interesting plot twist in all of this. And for the New York Jets, he had them taking Olu Fashanu, the offensive tackle out of Penn State. Now, if we've been going through this process, as we have, Olu Fashanu isn't the wildest pick in the world from everything we've seen. However, the debate is now this, because if the Jets went through with this plan and selected Penn State offensive tackle Olu Fashanu, well, that player would be on the bench. Yeah. The Jets have their starting lineup, which, by the way, is still a miracle. I can't believe all the credit in the world to Joe Douglas for figuring that out. But the starting 5 offensive line, it's in stone, baby. Let's go through them. Left tackle, Tyron Smith, which I'm still pinching myself over. Left guard, John Simpson. Center, Joe Tippmann. Right guard, Elijah Vera Tucker. And finally, Morgan Moses, right tackle. That is your starting 5 offensive line right there. And Olu Fashanu, his ass would be heading for the bench if he was selected, which has created a debate point on social media. Because on one hand, it'd be great. It'd be a great insurance policy for Tyron Smith and or Morgan Moses. In this Fashanu case, he said he's been practicing both sides. It looks like he'd pen in at left tackle, but he has done some right tackle work, so you have a little bit of that flexibility from that standpoint. He told Connor Rogers, our guy from NBC Sports, when he was doing all the interviews at the Combine. So he's had some work on both sides. And you'd have a great insurance policy if Tyron Smith or Morgan Moses, both at 33 years of age, were to go down. Well, booyah, you have Olu Fashanu to step in, and you'd continue the train. But there's a chance that that player, in theory, on paper, doesn't hit the field. And that would be the second straight offseason where the Jets invested a first-round draft choice that did not play on the field in a lot of snaps. Will McDonald, the pass rusher out of Iowa State, was the number 15 overall pick last year. And he played in the fewest amount of snaps since, wait for it, Vernon Gholston. He played in the fewest amount of snaps since Vernon Gholston, the pass rusher out of Ohio State, the biggest draft bust in New York Jets history. And Olu Fashanu, in theory, would start off on the bench unless there was some sort of crazy injury before the season. And if, no injuries happen, that's probably unlikely that no injuries will happen. But the Jets had 13 different combinations on the offensive line last year. Robert Saleh explained at the annual league meeting that they have done a deep dive. Not to pull up the Adam Gase deep dive into C.J. Mosley's groin quote, but they did a deep dive into, studying the injury rate and all these other things with the offensive line. So there's a chance that will dramatically improve this season, and thus Fashanu would play a lot less. Now, the good side of it is you have an insurance policy for Tyron or Morgan or both. Okay. And then in theory, you have your long-term starter at left or right tackle for the next decade. Not bad for a first-round pick. However, for a team that champions itself as an all-in team, and of course that is the case, you have Aaron friggin' Rodgers, who's 40 years of age there at quarterback. He will turn 41 in December. Like, for a second straight year, to take a first-round talent that's not going to immediately be on the field would be, I understand the fans are like, I don't know about that. I'm not so sure. And it seems like the fan base is somewhat split. We'll see in the comment section. I'm seeing comments we have on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. All of them are pouring in here. And keep the questions or comments going. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this, where you stand. Actually, let me go to my Twitter, because not only did I share the Tannenbaum mock draft selection on Twitter, but I also included a poll underneath, and I said, grade this draft if this actually happened. And I'll throw this up on the screen for all our visual viewers here. I'll also explain it to our audio-only listeners. So here was it. This was under the Mike Tannenbaum, and I'll give you his explanation as well. But if this is how things played out, and they ended up with Penn State offensive tackle Olu Fashanu, grade the draft. Your 4 choices were A+, B+, C+, F, terrible. 44.4% of the fans picked A+, 43.4% picked B+, 8.1% picked C+, and there's 4.1% that picked F, terrible. And I also got comments in addition to this. I got comments like people trying to explain their pick. And a few people picked F. They're like, why are we taking another player who's on the bench? So, a lot of people are still up in arms about that possibility. I'll also tell you in this mock, which is kind of interesting, the New York Jets got the 3rd swing at offensive tackle. So the Chargers in this Mike Tannenbaum mock draft scenario, the Chargers with the 5th overall pick went Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. Although that would be interesting. He'd have to flip to right tackle because they have Rashawn Slater there at left tackle. At 7, the Tennessee Titans took J.C. Latham, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. And then the Jets got the final whack in the top 10 at offensive tackle. That would be Olu Fashanu, who is the 3rd tackle. Here's what Tannenbaum, by the way, said about the pick. Quote, the Jets signed left tackle Tyron Smith to a 1-year deal, but given Smith's age durability concerns, Fashanu could be a very necessary insurance policy and future building block. At 6'6" and 312 pounds, Fashanu has excellent feet and movement skills for his frame. He played 1,300-plus snaps during his Penn State career and gave up only 1 sack. He has perennial all-pro potential if his technique continues to develop, giving the Jets a shutdown left tackle for years to come. New York also traded for Morgan Moses, but he's a fit on the right side and is a 2025 free agent, as is Tyron Smith. So, those were the grades for those people, and we did have some F and D votes. And I think a lot of the explanation on there was because of the fact that that player would not immediately be penciled in. Like, you take Breece Hall, okay, he's playing. You take Garrett Wilson, all right, I see it, Over the years, you see the players they take, they immediately have a spot to take. Sauce Gardner. Yeah, okay, he's starting. You know what I mean? So he has that in the lineup. So I understand that. I feel like this would be a little different from last year from this standpoint. Let me say this. Let me say this right from the get-go. I don't know if there's many things the Jets can do at the 10th overall pick that will piss me off, that I will be screaming angry. I'm not sure there's many things, because think about it. So they go one of the top wide receivers. Again, I'm leaning towards the top 3, and the top 3 aren't there. I'm trading back or going in some other direction. I don't think I'm reaching for wide receiver. But if one of the top 3 are there, Rome Odunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Malik Neighbors, okay, we're talking. Okay, so any of those are great. Offensive lineman, okay. The same pitch that Tannenbaum just gave. Great insurance policy, long-term tackle. All right, that kind of makes sense, sure. Brock Bowers, okay. Pass catcher that immediately will have a role on the team. Aaron Rodgers, high tide to left all boats. Okay, that makes sense. The only thing that would infuriate me would be defense. That one would be, boy, what are we doing here? We need offense. And I want all these resources invested into the offense. So a defensive pick, that would kind of, I don't know if I'd be a massive fan of that. A quarterback, now that would, that cause some reactions. I mean, it would have to depend on who the quarterback was and what happened there. And likely the Jets would be picking 5th fiddle in the quarterback rotation. So, boy, I would need a really good explanation from the Jets brass if they just said, yeah, we're taking a quarterback. I'd be like, whoa, we need an explanation there. So, but the thing that would only irritate me would probably be defense. So, I mean, there's not a lot of wrong that can happen here. Maybe the Jets will find it, I suppose. But I'll be kind of interested. All right, let's get to some of these comments here. Live on the show. Appreciate you guys. Morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Let's go to Jackson Valente on Twitter. He's been a regular on our Twitter sphere. Olu needs a year to sit and learn high floor and pass blocking, but run blocking very raw. Yeah, the pass blocking is phenomenal, and I would love it because I think even in the run game and things, you could help him out. You could throw a tight end on that side or do what you need to do. I'm very intrigued by the pass protection. And again, at this point, after the Jets have kind of reorganized the offensive line room, he wouldn't have to play immediately, which would anger some people. Matthias says on YouTube, you better get that offensive tackle. You'll be crying and I'll be saying, I told you so. Yeah, I wrote it in my piece, which is also hooked up to this video. It's in the YouTube description, that right now, as it currently stands, I think the 5 are great. I love the 5. I think the 5's got top 10 potential. I really like this starting 5. Now, if Moses or Tyron were to go down, we'll stay at tackle for now. The options are Carter Warren, Max Mitchell. Now, I will leave the possibility there that Carter Warren, who showed some chutzpah at the end of last season, and then also with some of the, the development that could be taking place, that maybe he's a surprise. And if he were to play, we're like, whoa, okay, Jets development. Check that one off the bucket list. We've seen great development on the defensive side of the ball. Guys like Bryce Huff, too soon. Michael Carter II, Tony Adams, like young players they've crafted and molded that have become, some interesting players on the defensive side of the ball. So there's been some interesting chutzpah from that standpoint when you look at some of those players. Now, we haven't seen that sort of consistency on the offensive side of the ball, but maybe we do get that surprise, like a Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, perhaps. But that's the line of defense. So the Jets still need a swing tackle. Is it a veteran, as we mentioned some of the names yesterday? David Bakhtiari, Donovan Smith. Is it the draft where we pick Fashanu, let's just say, and obviously he would be your top swing tackle, and he'd be right on the precipice. Put me in, coach. Like he'd be right there. So that's compelling. But Matthias thinks that we could be crying, and you saying I told you so. If we go into the season, one of these guys drops, and then we have Max Mitchell out there, like, hey, boy. So hopefully the plan isn't done there. And back to Jackson here says, give Olu a year to learn. I think that could only help. I talk about it all the time in the quarterback room. Having someone in there to absorb from Aaron Rodgers would be important. But yeah, learning from Tyron Smith, one of the greatest to ever do it. Yeah, not bad. R&R says on YouTube, if the Jets go offensive tackle, he dominates in training camp, or they start him? Absolutely not. There's no way. No. Tyron Smith, come on. He's one of the greatest left tackles of all time, so there's no chance of that. And then Morgan Moses, he's such a leader and everything. It would be flabbergasting. Yeah, I'd be jaw dropped if one of those guys were on the bench healthy for a rookie. I just don't see it. I don't see it. No, that would surprise me. I mean, I guess you always have to leave the door open. I go back to the quarterback example. The Seahawks gave $22 million, which was a lot back then. I know it's not a lot now, but it's a lot to us, but not a lot to football players. The Seattle Seahawks gave a 3-year, $22 million deal to some guy named Matt Flynn. He was supposed to be the starter, and they took some guy named Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, and Russell Wilson beat out Matt Flynn, the chosen one, the guy they paid the money that was supposed to be the guy. They draft Russell Wilson. He beats him out in camp, and boom, the rest is history. So sure, surprises can happen. Like, whoa, didn't have that on the bingo card. So I guess you have to leave some modicum of a possibility there, but that would surprise me just because of who these guys are, specifically Tyron and Olu. In this case, if we're playing that game, Olu would have to really show that he could do it at right tackle. Like Morgan Moses is a stalwart at right tackle. It has been forever. Tyron Smith is a stalwart at left tackle. He's been there forever. Where's Olu playing? That would be my question. Let's go to Mitch here on YouTube. They'll take Brock Bowers, in my opinion, if one of the 3 receivers don't fall. I wouldn't mind that. If one of the 3 receivers there, I'm going with the receiver. But if the 3 receivers are gone, and I'd assume Joe Alt also gone, Brock Bowers would probably be my pick too right now. He'd probably be my pick. Everyone, and I'll tweet out another clip. It was from the Can't Wait podcast yesterday. Everyone wants to trade back. Like that's probably the breadth. I'm probably generalizing, but that's the majority of Jet fans want to trade back. It takes two to tango. And if none of the things you want are on the board, you're assuming that they're all the things someone else wants? I don't know. The only chance, I think, where there'd be a lot of, not the only chance, the place where there'd be a lot of trade activity is twofold to me. One of the quarterbacks are there. One of the four did not go, and they're there at 10. And there's some sort of mini bidding war, and everyone's trying to get, I'll make it up, J.J. McCarthy. Okay, there'd be some interest. One of the top three receivers slips. Oh, boy. I'm sure a lot of teams would be wanting to move up. But if you're the Jets, on the quarterback thing makes sense. Sure, trade out. Someone trades up for a quarterback, you get picks. Awesome. But on the wide receiver, am I the Jets letting somebody else get one of these awesome wide receivers? I'd love to see the package, but I'd probably just, we're good. We'll take that wide receiver. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think in optimal world, if all those guys are gone, trading back a few slots, still getting Brock Bowers, trading back a few slots, and we'll use Bowers as this example, trading back to 12, 13, 14, get a pick, a third, maybe a second if you squint, and then you get Brock Bowers. Okay, there you go. That's some good operating right there, I think. Let's see. Matthias says, you will get a very good wide receiver in the third round or second round if you trade back. I hear a lot of people say this, and while it's true, we've had some draft analysts and more to come. We're going to have some big names coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Sure, yeah, they're starting wide receivers in the second or third round. Yeah, that's true. Might I show you Exhibit A? Devin Smith, Stephen Hill. Okay, some of those examples. Denzel Mims as another one, where we thought, whoa, we were getting quite a steal here. Stephen Hill, I remember people were going all over the place. Oh, boy, we got the next Megatron. Nope. Denzel Mims, oh, boy. No, I don't think so. Elijah Moore? Like, come on. The list goes on and on. Now, I'm not saying just because those all failed that this one is destined to fail. But, boy, that is a cautionary tale of, oh, boy, those didn't work out. The fact of the matter is that you could trade back and get another guy that's pretty good, but the Jets don't have a great history of drafting guys in that mid-second, third round and just producing talent. Darius Stewart? Does that name ring any bells? Now we'll go into the fourth round with guys like that Shaq guy. Who is that? Shaq something. UCLA wide receiver. He was taken. Jalen Saunders. You know what I mean? Again, there's Marcus Colstons of the world and receivers that go late, but I'm telling you, man, I would love to just get a guy, because like what you're getting in the second or third round is not Marvin Harrison Jr. You know what I mean? If he gets within range that you could trade up, that's why I'm intrigued, because he's way better than the second or third round receiver. Sure, could you also get is it the draft deep, and you could get a starting caliber wide receiver later? Maybe, if you pick the right guy and got the right development. But Marvin Harrison, you know exactly what he is. That's what I say. Let's go to Sean on our Heavy on Jets Facebook page. Thank you to Heavy for supporting the show every day. We appreciate you. Sean says, I saw a mock draft where Jets trade 10th to 17th to Jacksonville, get a second rounder as well. I did not see that mock, but I would just tell you in general that we did an analysis probably a couple months ago now, but what's the shortest distance the Jets have to trade back to acquire the second round pick that's missing from the Aaron Rodgers trade? And the answer to that question is 17-18. That is Jacksonville and Cincinnati. According to the draft value chart, that's where you go where you could get a second, according to the value chart. Now, a couple of things here. First off, those teams need to want to trade up for whatever it is. And they have to be acquiescing and listening to the draft value chart, which is more so a guideline. But I always find it interesting for us commoners, us great unwashed, to try to get a better scope of what it all means. But yeah, sure, that's possible. But what is Jacksonville moving up for? That's a big key. But sure, I'm for getting a second round pick if it works out. And maybe you don't even have to trade back that far. So screw the draft value chart. Let's say one of those quarterbacks on the board or someone's crazy is on the board, and you could trade back, 3 or 4 spots and still get the second because of the price. There is a tax draft day price where, hey, man, I know that the draft value chart says you have to only give me a third, but I got 12 teams calling. So you better cough up that second, pal. And you get a second. So it gets pretty interesting. Let's go to Mitch here on YouTube. Says, JD is a lame duck GM, so he has to take the biggest impact player to keep his job. You would think. You would think. And he did mention a comment. We'll break down some Joe Douglas comments on Thursday, but from the annual league meeting. But he did say, about he was kind of intrigued by the, impact guy in the first round. So we'll see. Although, to your point, right, he will just throw, like if he's his lame duck GM, excuse me, as you say, Mitch, he didn't go after Calvin Ridley. He didn't get desperate in some of those scenarios. He was very patient. So credit to him that he didn't operate as a guy that is about to lose his job. He was very smart and calculated and savvy with a lot of his moves. So I don't know if that reeks of the desperation he's going to do whatever it takes. So keep that in mind. Mike Kaz, Jets all the time on YouTube. Boy Green, good morning. Good morning, pal. Don't be shocked that the player that we pick will be on the bench, but he will be getting playing time because the players that we picked up in free agency will need time off. This should not be a shock. You're acting as if it would be a stupid move, and that's not. They need to win now and not develop. However, they need to develop for next year. Now, I'm not saying it's stupid, but I'm saying it's a debate point that people are arguing on social media right now that if the Jets take an offensive tackle, that's a player that is projected right now not to play. Now, you say that the pick may start out on the bench, but he'll be getting playing time. Now, that's the likely bet that they will be because of all the injuries the Jets have had. So that player likely would step into the lineup, but it's not a guarantee. It is not a guarantee. Even if it is a guarantee, what is it? Tyron Smith has played basically 12 or 13, 14 games every year of his career outside of 2 of the last 4. So you're getting a first rounder that, again, is only going to play 3, 4, 5 games? I don't know. I don't know where I stand on that personally. Not sure. But again, I tell you, I repeat, I go back to the beginning, that there are very few things the Jets could do that would make me angry. Like if they took an offense tackle, I'd be like, okay, makes sense. Wide receiver, all righty. Tight end, sure. But defense is probably the one where I'd be like, oh boy. Well, I'd be a little upset. So no, I don't think it would be a stupid move, but it would be one that needs explanation to the fans because that would be their thing. Whoa, you took a player for the second straight year? Because that's like an arrogant thing to do, to take a player in a win now season in back-to-back years where it isn't win now. That's not a win now move. That's a win in the future move. That's a laying the foundation. Again, I understand the thought process behind it, but I'm sure a lot of the fans would be like, And obviously with some of the voting. But I'd be intrigued by it. And I will also mention, as Kaz has other comments here, that the draft, one of the common misconception about the draft is that it's a plug and play thing for now. Now, obviously, first round picks normally play, naturally. But teams don't just draft guys like, oh man, I need a right tackle right now. It's like, hey, what are we going to need for the next 2, 3, 4 years? It's a projecting out. It's like, oh boy, let me make this up. Who's an older guy? Wow, they don't really have a lot of CJ Mosley as an example. Now, boy, CJ Mosley's here the next 2 years, but boy, that third year he's disappearing. Maybe they start thinking about linebacker. Like it's not because they necessarily need a linebacker right now. You got Quincy and CJ, but projecting out in the future, they could. So interesting. Will be interesting. Peter joins us on YouTube. Draft that offensive tackle. Hedge your bets. Injure the Jets' family jewels. We know about the turf. That's true. Yeah, that would be hedging your bets. That's for sure. Francis on our Heavy on Jets Facebook page says, trade back, pick up the second, take Guyton, and move on. Yeah, I'm really, really intrigued by Tyler Guyton, the Oklahoma offensive tackle now, because he's a guy that needs some developing. And with the Jets' current structure, he would be a developing guy right behind Tyron Smith. So that would be kind of intriguing to me. We'll see, where he would play. But for the immediate, he could learn. And I think that's intriguing. Phil says, I keep going back and forth. Wide receiver, offense line. Wide receiver, offense line. But we get Bakhtiari, lean trade up for wide receiver, Neighbors or Harrison. We'll bring our offense to another level. And that's why I want it. Because I think the wide receiver trade up, to me, answers all the questions. And here's why. You get a guy that obviously is going to impact the right now. And he's going to impact the future. Because Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr., as the example, would be your receiver duo for the next decade. one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL in terms of youth, potential, and upside and all that. That to me would be intriguing. I feel like Bakhtiari is inevitable. We'll see. Now, it's not like the Jets signed, let's say, if they would have signed like George Fant in free agency for like $5 million, and then they signed Bakhtiari and they compete, and then best man wins. It's not that. Like Tyron Smith is clearly the starter. So maybe that Bakhtiari is like, nah, I don't want to go there. I'm clearly going to be on the bench. Maybe he's above that. I don't know. With everything he's been through. So that would be the tough part on Bakhtiari, because I've felt like for a while that's inevitable, but now with Tyron Smith here, maybe not. We'll see. John Sauer says, part of the Boy Green Superfan Club, which, by the way, the free way to contribute if you guys are watching on YouTube right now, and we appreciate the 100+ that are. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe down below. But if you'd like to go the extra mile, join the Boy Green Superfan Club. You can join our membership for a small fee every month. We appreciate it. Support the program. Keep the lights on, baby. John says, if we don't get a top OT in first, we'll rue the day when Smith or Moses goes down and Max Mitchell trots out there. The other thing, like I said, that we don't know is how good did the Jets feel about Carter Warren? And from some of Salah's comments, there's a lot to still cut up and dive into, but he seems very high on Carter Warren. So maybe he will surprise us. Phil, Fashanu, why is he dropping? Or is it a smokescreen? Trevor Sycamore questioned the power profile, and him coming back showed a couple of flaws, is what they say. But it could be a smokescreen. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, only 9 players can go in front of the Jets. So players are inevitably going to be on the board, and players got to rise, players got to fall. So why is he dropping? That's a good question for a future draft expert to join the show. But power profile was one of the things that they said that I've heard. Big Daddy on YouTube says there's a belief Fashanu's poor run blocking is due to his small hands, which inhibits his ability to grab and drive defenders. Yeah, small hands that smell like cabbage. Small hands that smell like cabbage. That could be. Okay, let's go to Ricky, New York. Although I want a wide receiver, I'd move back, but no lower than 15 to add a second and draft Fontenot for offensive tackle guard position versatility, then Roman Wilson in the second and Trey Benson in the third. That would be an offensive explosion, which I would fully support. That's the key with trading back, is you don't want to trade back too far and you miss out on some quality people. You miss out too far, you miss out on the blue chip talent. Yeah, there is a lot of versatility in this draft. You got to love that. Let's go to Pete A. joining us here on Twitter. Paul, keep up the good work. Appreciate you, brother. Who's your number one draft prospect that you want on the Jets? It's Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not going to lie. And obviously, he won't be on the board at 10. Trade the hell up, Jets. Do it. I'm Shia LaBeouf. Just do it. Do it. That's what I want. I want Marvin Harrison Jr. I want Maserati Marv. That's who I want. I did it last year on draft day where I said, hey, here's the 3 players at 15 that I want. And they were, let me see, I believe it was Kalijah Cansey, Jack, the defensive tackle out of Pittsburgh, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I'll have to look up that tweet. Who was my third guy? Oh, yeah, Peter Skoronski. Those were my 3. So on draft day, I will give another 3, I suppose, for 10 if they don't move up. Like the 3 that I wanted. They drafted none of those, obviously. They drafted Will McDonald, but I will share that on draft day. Top 3. But right now, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. No question about it. But thanks for chiming in. Pete A on Twitter. Or X. Both. Whatever. Yeah, you bet, Paul. You bet, Paul. Every single day, baby. Live at 7:30. Appreciate you. You appreciate sharing the info. You bet. Big Serg says, trade up for Harrison. He's a potential gold jacket, baby. Yes. Yes. I agree. Just like his papa. Kevin Bracco says, Brock Bowers, first round receiver, 3rd round. Okay. I like the plan. Let's see. Yeah, I think he will have Marvin Harrison Jr. will have a big impact. John Sauer is pounding the offensive tackle train. OT, OT, OT. Come on, guys, think. We know Smith is going down, and Moses is old. Do you think just maybe we'll want a capable replacement? You're all so short-sighted. I think you can fill that with the veteran market, the pro market. I think you could get a Donovan Smith or Bakhtiari, again, one of the two, and that's your guy. I don't think you have to invest a first-round pick. You can invest a first-round pick, but I don't think you have to. And I think we have different perceptions of old. 33 is not bad. And to be honest with you, Morgan Moses has played in 16 or 17 games in 8 of the last 9 years. The only year he didn't was last year, where he tore his pec in week 4 and played through it, and he played in 14 games. So Morgan Moses is as rock solid as they come. And then we go over to Tyron, who, sure, in 2 of the last 4 years, he's missed significant time. But at the end of the day, there's injury risk with everybody that you bring in. And obviously, with a few of the players the Jets have brought in, it's been a little bit more highlighted. I'm not saying that offensive tackle would be dumb. I'm saying that you just got to really vet out all the options. And with this, I don't think before you had to take offensive tackle in that 2020 draft where Mekhi Becton and I love CeeDee Lamb in that draft. You had to take offensive tackle. It was non-negotiable. You needed to, and they did. This year, I don't think you need to. You can, but you don't need to. That's my take. That's how I feel about it. But hey, different strokes. Again, I would just be aggressive. I would be aggressive. I'd be curious what it would take. But we'll see. Jadeveon Clowney, we'll see the money. Tom Pelissero, oh boy, maybe we'll do that for a different show this week. But the money he said Clowney could get, I was like, whoa, okay, that's a little higher than I thought. Like I said, maybe we can react and talk about that tomorrow on the outstanding visit apparently that he had. But the Jets, and they were sniffing around Shaq Barrett. Obviously, they think very highly of getting another edge rusher in here. Old and retired. I love that handle on YouTube. Originally, I was in favor of trading back, but now I'm thinking trade up and be in a position to draft whichever of these 3 falls. Alt, Harrison, or Neighbors. Yeah, I'd love any of those 3. And as long as the trade up isn't to like 4, because I feel like that's going to cost you too much. But if you go to, I don't know, Tennessee said they're open to trading back. If you go to like 7 and one of those 3 or a combination of those 3, or maybe it is 5, I don't know. It depends on the price. And there's going to be a price on draft day, where the Jets will reach out to these teams in advance, set up the framework of a deal. And we're talking about Tannenbaum today, which is funny. If you see my intro and you see all those still shots, those still frames of past interviews, I've had Mike Tannenbaum on the show before. He's drinking the OJ in the shot, and he told me, because I'm a draft nerd, for a lot of these trades, you set them up in advance. Randy Mueller, another former NFL general manager, has joined me on my show, that those deals you're talking to in advance. You kind of see it in the movie Draft Day 2, where you're like, hey, if this player is there at this pick, we'll give you a call. Let's set up the framework of what the trade would look like. And you have those conversations ahead of time. So Jets can have all those conversations. We could see kind of what the price would be, and they don't have to reveal their player. They can just say, hey, if our player's there, we'll trade up with you. And they're like, okay, cool. And then you revisit it later. But I'd love any of those 3. That would be great. John Star says if we trade up, it's for alt. That would be, and again, for a trade up for a backup, that would be, some people would go crazy, but to have a guy like Joe Alt would be pretty cool. Big Surg. I'd pass on Bowers. Rucker and Conklin are a good tight end pair. I'd like to develop Rucker. Yeah, here's the complicated picture I am with the Brock Bowers stuff. So I think Conklin is just solid. And I like Conklin. He's joined my show 100 times. Conklin's cool. He's a cool dude. He's cool human. He's down to the earth, rock salt, earthy guy. Love Conklin. And I think he's solid. I think he could do very well with Aaron Rodgers. Now, Rucker, I have no idea. We've seen a couple of the crazy one-hit catches. You're like, whoa. But, like, he's been injured. He's a good blocker. But we haven't really seen anything from the receiving game. That was supposed to be an untapped part of his game at Ohio State that we never saw because they didn't really use him, and we haven't seen him in the NFL, so we don't know. He's just a mystery box. Maybe he'll be good. Maybe he won't. I don't know. We're already halfway through his rookie contract, which is pretty crazy. So I think that the tight end room is good enough where you could go and say, yeah, this is good, right? You got Conklin, you got Rucker, you got Kenny Yeboah, you got Zach Kuntz. Like, that's enough. But you could go over the top with the Brock Bowers because he provides something that none of these other guys do. So that's a question for the Jets. I'm fine if they rock with the room as is. But if they choose to go Brock Bowers, I'd be like, that's exciting. So I think there is a fine balance. And again, if you're fine there, then you could go somewhere else. So that's my take on the Brock Bowers thing at this moment in time. Oh, Big Sur has a follow-up question. Draft Bowers or continue to develop Rucker? What say you, Paul? The story's cool. Let's be honest. It's cool. The Jet fan and his family and Bill Rucker and the Let's Go Jets. All that is awesome. And it's cool when those draft stories organically come to life. The Jets happen to take a guy in the third round. I would probably, again, it depends on what's on the board and things of that nature. But if we're in the scenario where, again, the 3 receivers are gone and Joe Alt's gone and Brock Bowers on the board and there's no real great trade backs, I'm probably taking Brock Bowers. But if there's a lot of options on the board and Brock Bowers on the board, maybe I try to trade back. And if Brock Bowers is still there, I would take him or trade back and go get one of the offensive linemen or what have you. So I'm leaning, let me not dance around the question, Big Sir. Good question. I'm leaning towards taking Brock Bowers right now because, again, I just haven't seen enough from Rucker. And in fairness to Rucker, his rookie season was basically lost from the plantar fasciitis and had at the Senior Bowl, and we didn't really get to see what he was made of. And then he's been buried with CG Uzama and Conklin, all these other guys. So he's barely been able to get on the field, quite frankly. So he hasn't had a real chance. So it's not all his fault. But if you go into this year and just say, Rucker will be great, and then you see and you're like, he's not. Well, I guess we need another tight end. Conklin's in the last year's deal. So there's a lot of big boy decisions that have to be made at tight end. I'm leaning towards drafting Bowers. But if they end up developing Rucker and they don't take Bowers, because I think it's like Bowers or bust. It's kind of like a fantasy football draft. When you go to take a tight end, you either take him early or you take him late. There's no in between. There's no I'll take someone in the 5th. I'm not taking someone in the 5th if I'm the Jets and drafting a mid-round tight end. That's not happening. I'm either going for broke or I'm not going at all. That's kind of my mentality heading into this tight end draft, personally. Because Bowers is really special, but if they don't get Bowers, I'm like, okay, let's rock. So I'm leaning towards Bowers. And Francis says on Facebook for the Heavy on Jets, I'm not taking a tight end with Hackett as our OC. We need some more meat and potatoes. Yeah, that's a lot of people could counter the Brock Bowers thing. Oh, man, all you need is a creative OC to use him. Will he be? I don't know. Dakota says, I'm Kareem Hunt or Zeke. Again, I'm for that. They'll probably wait because the running back price will continue to drop. Big Brock Bowers truthers. I believe they're called the Bowers Boys. I believe that's the official name if you join that club. I have heard from, I think Matt O'Leary said that. I think it's the Bowers Boys. I think is the name for you people. Let's see. Hope we get him. Okay. Boy Green. Trevor Sickham had a great quote about taking Bowers over an O-lineman. That's like eating dessert before your vegetables. It's true. When people say about offensive line drafting, it's eating your vegetables. It's not sexy, but necessary for a big, strong, healthy body and a growing body. That's a funny line. I did not hear that. I've not been listening to the stock exchange every day like I used to. The limited time, only so many shows I can listen to, but I try to listen to it when I can because I really enjoyed their show. But that's a great quote. I do love my buddy Trevor. That's a funny quote too. But I would say, again, because the Jets have the starters lined up, that they aren't forced to take offensive line. I thought before they were. Ronald Perry, drafting a tight end in the first, that sounds like a Jets move. And they've taken tight end. I'm going to be honest. I haven't double-checked the history. The Jets have taken more tight ends in the first round than like any team in history, if you really think about it. There's been, off the top of my head, Dustin Keller, okay? Anthony Becht. I just had this in an article too. There's more than that, but it goes back. I don't think Mickey Schuler was a first round pick, but maybe he was. I don't know. My brain's not working right now. But I had a list, and there was like 4 or 5 on there. You're like, whoa, okay, wow. The Jets have a crazy list of tight ends here in the first round. Kyle Brady, obviously, there's another one, but Justin Keller, Becht, Kyle Brady, and there's like 2 or 3 more, and you're like, what the hell? In the modern draft era, it's wild. But I would say that I don't think we could base off, again, like those mistakes mean that every tight end in the future in the first round will suck. But, the Jets would be in a unique position this year where it would be kind of interesting. Let's see. Matthias. Let's see. Harrison. Okay. Draft best available wide receiver. Bring in someone like Fant and Francie. Frant's already gone. He went back to Seattle, but someone like that would be interesting. Good morning to my mother who's in here. Very nice. We're super old. I don't think we're super. Dwayne Brown is super old. He's 38 or something. Like Tyron Smith is 33. That's a 5-year difference. 5 years, a massive gap of time. Massive gap. Fontenot is an interesting guy. I know that's Connor Rogers' guy, so that's interesting. ABT is young. How many games did he miss due to injury? I had this in another story. I also have to write this for another thing because Robert Sala's thing. I mean, he's missed a ton. He's had back-to-back season-ending injuries. So, yeah, I mean, it's a 30-something. It's something crazy. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. And they have to make a decision. The Jets, have to make a decision on his fifth-year option by May 2nd. That is coming after the draft. Taylor says on YouTube, if Rucker wasn't on a college team with the best wide receiver room in history, more of the offense would run through him and he would look a lot like Bowers. That's probably a little aggressive, but it is true that if he was on a different team, he probably would have gotten more run, but we never saw him get more run, so we don't know. So, and Charles says, Rucker penalties have to be cleaned up too. Yeah, when you're not on the field a lot and you're making mistakes and we're calling your name, not good. No, sir. NC is a J.C. Latham fan. Yeah, he's a right tackle. An interesting player. Big boy. Jed Oren says Olu is the guy. No offensive tackles available at 72. That's a fair point. There might be some interesting wide receivers. It won't be big boy offensive tackles like that probably. Guard market could have some names, but offensive tackle. Latham or Fontenot gives us the most flexibility in case a tackle or guard goes down. That would be true. I don't want another AVT plugging in everywhere, but that would be interesting. John Sauer says, who is our offensive tackles in 2025? And I'm going to be honest, this probably sounds rude. I don't care. I don't care who they are. I have my blinders on. This is the only season that matters to me. All my chips are pushed into the middle of the table. Like, people say that all the time to me. They try to give me crap at work when they're like, who's your quarterback going to be after Rodgers? I'm like, I don't care. I'm not looking past Rodgers. I have Rodgers. I'm going to ride this Rodgers train, and I'll figure out who the flying hoot is going to be the quarterback after it. Again, I'm not opposed to adding a young quarterback to the room as an example, or to this offensive tackle room, having a guy that you could be the future guy. Like, I'm all for that, but like, I'm not even thinking about 2025. That year doesn't exist to me. The only year that exists right now in my brain, 2024, baby. That's it. I am all in on that. Let's see. John Sauer says 3 spots may not recoup a second rounder. It does not, according to the draft value chart. Again, the thing you will need is craziness on draft day. Surprise players to be available where all of a sudden you have a bidding war and you can charge a higher price to teams trying to trade up. So no, according to the draft value chart, absolutely trading 3 spots down is not worth a second rounder. Again, you have to trade 7 or 8 spots in the first round from 10 to 17, 18 range for the Jets to be in quote unquote second round territory. But sometimes you can turn up the heat on somebody who's desperate. They're trying to get their guy, and they may pay a higher price. Johnny Mitchell, that's another one as well. Thank you. That's another one. Yeah, there's a bunch, though. Schuler was 3rd round. Okay, thank you for that, NC. It's not Schuler, but Johnny Mitchell was another one. But again, the fact that there's 4 or 5 that we've confirmed, like, that's a crazy amount. SG_31 Black. What player receivers? Brock Bowers. That's the guarantee. If you're looking for a guarantee impact or a guarantee like they're getting on the field and making plays, it's got to be one of those. The defender wouldn't, because like, where are they going? Who is the defender anyway? It's not corner. It's not safety. It's not pass rusher. That'd be the Will McDonald treatment. So that doesn't make any sense. There's no position now that I've just kind of scanned through the defense. So 0 on defense. The offensive lineman, maybe if someone gets hurt. And then how big of an impact is TBD, so they wouldn't be a full-time starter. So it's wide receiver, tight end. I mean, that's it. Plain and simple. That is it. Big Serg. I really thought Johnny Mitch was that guy. That's funny. Mike Brenner on Facebook. What about Becton coming back on a team-friendly deal? Possible. It'd probably be a one-year prove-it no matter where he goes. We will see. I don't know. Him calling out Keith Carter, not sure if that'll work. We'll see. He's still hanging out there. And again, I know he loves Aaron Rodgers, wants to play with him. So maybe. I wonder if he'd come back knowing he's the backup. Like, because he wanted to play. That's a big thing. And I don't blame him. He's an athlete, right? A professional athlete. Of course they want to play. They have, everything. So it's possible. I won't completely rule it out, but the Keith Carter call, that could be tough. 2025 picks are in play. Yeah, so just to explain, you only have control of 3 years worth of picks. So right now, the Jets can only trade 2024 picks, 2025 picks, and 2026 picks. It's an NFL rule. In other sports, right, NBA, I'll give you a 2045 first-round pick. You can do that in other sports. But the NFL, you only have control of 3 years of drafts, including the one that you're in. So the Jets wouldn't have control of the 2027 picks till after this draft. But, yeah, I mean, sure, there are things on the table to use for the future if they want to entice another team potentially in some sort of massive trade-up scenario. That could be possible. But going full circle here to wrap up some Boy Green Daily action. Appreciate you guys all tuning in, the 500 plus that are in the room right now. Offensive tackle will continue to be a debate. Again, I reiterate the initial message that there are very few things the Jets could do that will make me angry, because I think there's a lot of good that can happen here with the New York Jets. A lot of good. There's a lot of great scenarios for the New York Jets to put themselves in an even better position to try to win a championship, to try to win the AFC East, and try to make things happen. And the Jets just got to attack. And let's see. I want Joe Douglas to be flexible on draft day. We want to move back. We want to move up. We want to stay on pat. That's a key. Flexibility. And they have the flexibility based on the moves they've made in free agency. So I'm excited. It's going to be an exciting draft, and I can't wait for it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into a Wednesday edition of Boy Green Daily. Again, the free way to contribute, whether you're watching live or after the fact, is liking the video, hitting subscribe, spreading the gospel of Boy Green Daily, baby. And, of course, we'll have a Boy Green Meets Woody tomorrow, Thursday, 3 o'clock. We'll be talking about some buy or sell with the comments Joe Douglas made at the annual league meeting. Plus, of course, we'll be back tomorrow morning live at 7:30 to give you all the latest in the world of sports. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.